Work sucks less when trust is more than just a word on a company website. Trust is at an all-time low. From corporations to government to media, our faith in our foundational institutions is flimsier than ever. Add AI to the mix, and it's a wonder we believe anything. We expect people to just show up at work and function normally in the face of all this. It's crazy. And if you look around at most workplaces today, normal is clearly not happening. Courage is the way out, according to this week's guest on the DesuckifyWork podcast. Maryam Mertash is a marketing exec and author who has demonstrated courage since she was barely able to speak as a refugee from Iran, along with her family. Today, she writes about courage every week on her Substack, This Is Not a Memo. She views courage as a skill, something we can build over time with reps.
Action!
Start small with something as simple as saying what you actually want for dinner instead of whatever is fine. Tell your friend, I'd love a second glass of wine instead of politely declining. Before you know it, you'll be the weirdo at work who never flinches when the hard thing needs to be said. You may even inspire other weirdos to join you. That's how we build trust at work, by saying and doing hard things, by living out the values we too casually post on corporate websites, by being reliable even in the face of external madness, especially then. So, who's ready to get weird? Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Maryam. Okay, Maryam Mertash, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I'm really excited for this conversation. I know we got connected through Prohuman Foundation. I think there's some interesting overlap in our career stories a little bit.
Yeah.
And you talk about a topic that I think is really important, this idea of courage and living in kind of a fear-based world and culture right now. So there's lots of good stuff to explore here. Before we dive in, I'd love to give you just a chance to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you came to be doing it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be in conversation with you today. And I do feel like we have a lot of synergies and parallels in terms of not career, but the way that we think about leadership and the work world. So for those who don't know me, I'm Maryam Mertash. I'm an entertainment marketing executive. I've worked at Disney, Marvel, Paramount, CBS, Tribune Media. I've really spent most of my career at the intersection of entertainment marketing and technology, working with major studios, but also with a lot of brands as well, and a lot of agencies as well, which is your background.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm also a writer. I'm a mother. I'm the voice behind the Substack This Is Not a Memo, which releases weekly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I write about leadership and courage and the future of work and the stories we tell ourselves.
Well, there's a lot to dig into there. And I appreciate how when you described who you are, you went beyond just work, right? And I think we all obviously think that way. But it does make me wonder, for you, what role does work play in your life?
You know, for me, work plays multiple roles. I think there is a part of work that becomes a part of your identity, especially as you're starting your career and you're building your path forward. And I've started to unravel a little bit of that, you know, my identity attached to work and the role that work plays in my life.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I was that high achiever, you know, a personality that did get consumed with work, right? But the way that I describe work now and the role it plays in my life has shifted. Because for me, I try to be really intentional about the work that I'm doing now and ensuring that it aligns with the way that I view the world and the impact that I want to have in the world and the way that I want to my voice to show up in the world. So it has shifted because I'm still work obsessed, but the work has changed.
Yeah.
And I've also learn to put boundaries around work and
Mm-hmm.
the role that it plays in my life, because I do wear multiple hats as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
all these other things. And I've made sure that I also make space in between work and the role it plays in my life for other things that I'm, wanting to create space for and brings me joy and happiness. Not that my work doesn't, because
Yeah.
I think the alignment piece is really finding work that does bring you joy and happiness and purpose.
Yeah. I think I love how you've redefined things there. And I think a lot of people are going through that, particularly folks who have moved past the beginning of their careers. Although right now, I think a lot of folks at the beginning of their careers are actually asking these questions that many of us didn't when we were first starting out. But I think what I heard in what you said that struck me as interesting was that identity piece. And I think for many of us, work can sort of define our identity for some period of time. And the way you said it, I was like, it's more like you're allowing yourself to express parts of your identity through your work
Mm-hmm.
versus
Yeah.
like defining your identity. So it's kind of like the direction has shifted. It's not work imprints on you who you are. It's more like, who am I? And then how can I bring that to various parts of my work life with intention? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you also touched on something else about how people at the beginning of their career are asking those questions now. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
wrote a piece recently about how they did a survey and asked Gen Z how many, whether they aspire to get to the C-suite, and only 6% said yes. I don't know if you saw
I
that.
haven't seen that. No.
Only 6% said that they aspire to have, a C-suite level role, and that,
Yeah.
and I think that ambition has also shifted, because
Mm,
for so long we were told, go to school, get a job, work your way up and retire, right?
mm-hmm.
That was the model. And that
Yeah.
model has broken a bit, right? And it has
Yeah.
shifted. And there's different ways of how we identify our work life now. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of the Gen Zers watched their parents, right? Or now even Gen Alpha watching their parents
Mm-hmm.
have to reinvent and pivot as we're
Yeah.
faced with economic and technological advancements and challenges.
Yeah.
And people are redefining what work means for them. And so as you watch your parents go through that,
Mm-hmm.
when you're starting off your career. So I just wanted to touch on that, because you brought
Yeah.
in how people at the beginning of their careers are asking those questions now. And a lot of that has to do with them watching what, their parents and millennials and Gen X's have been going through over the
Yeah.
past, decade. And there's a real shift there, and ambition and work looks really different in terms of how it's defined and how we attach our identity to it.
Yeah. I think that's a really good insight that they're seeing their parents and millennial and Gen Xers in general kind of not maybe have the same relationship to the sort of compact that work may be used to create. And I think it's been evolving over time. And I go back to like my parents, which are like, they're whatever comes just before boomer. They're in that generation. And there was like a guarantee pretty much. You showed up for work, you could work for the same company for the rest of your life. And then you retire, you get a pension, whatever. And then by the time
Yeah.
I'm Gen X, we showed up, it was like, that's breaking apart a bit, but there's still sort of like a career path that makes sense. Okay, I go into advertising, I can work there for 20 plus years, make a good living, and then decide if I want to move on to something else, which I did, which feels like okay. But now you look and you go, not only is that broken, where it's like, I don't know if I can go into advertising today and do it for 20 years. I don't know if it's going to be around in 10 years,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And then you add on to that, there's so much opportunity in other ways and other spaces and self creation. There's so many more ways to just build your own thing that even 15 years ago wasn't really possible. So I think that combination of the path ahead is fuzzy and oh by the way I can define my path feels like
Hmm.
it's creating a really interesting set of questions for the younger generations.
Yeah, and I think there's also a portion of them that looks at whether joy and happiness was ever part of the equation.
Yeah.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that so many people, you asked me about the role that work plays in my life. So many people went to work and, like you said, chose a career, did that for 20 years, but there's so many things about work, and especially within corporate America,
Yeah.
that's not always cheerful or happy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Hence
Yeah.
this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
DesuckifyWork. So I
Yeah.
think it's not only the lack of maybe stability now that they're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, but also asking the question, were my parents happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can I live a more joyful life? And I think those
Mm-hmm.
are also questions that people are asking themselves, because if you had, let's say, a parent that had a corporate job and worked their way up the ladder, even if it was within a industry that they were really passionate about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they came home miserable every day. That's going
Yeah.
to impact, right? The
Mm-hmm.
message that your child is receiving, that is
Mm-hmm.
that really what the path I want to follow? Do I
Yeah.
want to be miserable every day? And I think that
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of corporate environments, especially, right, like within corporate America and major corporations, there is a culture of, you go to work, you keep your head down and you work and
Mm-hmm.
you get your paycheck and you come home, right?
Yeah.
So I think that doesn't sound very appealing either, the culture of work and what it actually means. And you
Mm-hmm.
spend, 40, some people 60 hours a week
Mm-hmm.
at work, and most people are back in an office again, right?
Yeah.
Post COVID. And if those hours are keeping you away from your family and from your life, and you're still coming home miserable, then you got to ask the question, like, is there another way? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of Gen Zers are asking those questions, and they have a lot of other opportunities
Yeah.
that maybe Gen Xers and baby boomers, didn't, because
Yeah.
of technological advancements, because of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the um the opportunities that are here today that obviously were not, here back then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I think it's it's a very fair question for them to be asking. Like, is this worth it? Is the agreement that you've all been playing under, is that actually worth it? I think it's fair to say no to some of that and either choose your own path, or what I see some doing, to the frustration of my peers, and sometimes I get it, is show up, but show up differently and go, I'm
Right.
not going to work 60 hours a week. I don't do that. And it's like, I get it because we all did it. It feels like, of course you should do it, but it's like, it could be an invitation to go, well, maybe there is a different way here. And to your point about like joy and happiness, I guess I would say I'm pretty lucky. Most of my career in advertising, I was pretty happy. It was a lot of fun. It was a fun career. I chose it kind of for that reason. I didn't want kind of just a boring corporate job. I think advertising presented some opportunity
Yeah.
to have fun. It was hard, and there was a lot of 60-hour weeks and all that, but there was joy in it. I think over time, I think that culture has shifted, broadly speaking. I don't think it's impossible to find that now, but it's harder. And some of this, I think, comes back to, a topic you talk about, which is this idea of fear. And I think about the way I was able to show up earlier in my career. And it was, of course, there was fear that you would show your work and it would be hated or something. But like, there was a general optimism around like, we get to create cool stuff every day. And some of that's going to get out into the world. And that's pretty fun. And the client seems to generally appreciate it, even if at times they'll push back. But the sort of business corporate climate has shifted in a way where it feels less optimistic to me. It feels more built around efficiency and cost cutting and fear. Fear sort of shrinks us. And that sort of feels like where we are. So to show up in that, it's a little bit harder to find the joy when you're living in that.
It is. And I think that fear has, the intensification of fear has also been a result of the economic conditions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that fear, when people are afraid to lose their jobs, and there has been mass layoffs across multiple industries, especially over the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
In my industry, I mean, media and entertainment and tech has been
Yeah.
hit really hard, then decisions start to be created from a place of fear.
Yeah.
And it continues to have a trickle effect, right? And a snowball that intensifies the
Mm-hmm.
longer it continues. And I think that that's why we've also seen this shift in
Mm-hmm.
fear-based decision making as a
Yeah.
result of the economic impacts that
Mm.
of layoffs, and also, technological advancements that have resulted in some of the economic impacts, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's fear-based decision making and a fear-based culture. I feel that it's more prevalent today in a different way than it was back then.
I
And
agree.
yeah, back then it existed as well. But
Yeah, it's always had its role because I think there's always been a slice of people who believe that's the way you get stuff done is through sort
exactly.
of fear-based leadership. But I think there was an undercurrent. I think about sort of maybe the 90s was maybe an epitome of this, but maybe it still found its way through even into the 2000s earlier. Was just we can grow and we can build things and we can expand, and it feels a little bit like everybody's holding on for dear life right now. Um,
Yeah.
and it makes it really hard to then be creative. It makes it really hard to be optimistic, and it makes it really hard then to find joy or create joy in the workplace. I mean, I still believe that's actually the way, meaning if you're a leader, if you can help people enjoy their work more, they will
Hmm.
not only enjoy it more, but they'll do a better job. I think it's a great leadership tactic as well as just a great way for us to be.
Yeah.
But I think people are afraid of that. And so I come back to you with, a lot of the writing you do around courage. And
Hmm.
I think, okay, how do we find courage? I mean, how did you find courage?
I mean, I think for me, courage started at a really young age because I started to make courageous decisions and think courageously out of survival. But I don't think that to build courage, you need to be put in circumstances where you're in flight or flight mode,
Yeah.
to be able to develop it. I do believe that it's a skill and it's a trait. It's not something that you're born with or a personality trait. It's more a muscle. And with reps, the more you do it, the more you develop the muscle so that you can continue having courageous thinking. And
Mm,
I think that courageous thinking is so important right now and so imperative to us creating workspaces that will have impact and create innovation, and being able to say the thing that you want to say without feeling that you're
hmm
being silenced out of
hmm
fear, right?
Yeah.
So we need courageous thinkers right now. We need people who are going to push against the grain and who are going to take that risk of, what, I'm going to say it whether I get my hand slapped or not, because what's on the other side of it, the breakthrough, if you're able to break through, is,
hmm
innovation and impact and a more prosperous working environment
Yeah.
for everybody. But a lot of people don't know how to access that. And it's part of why I write about courageous thinking and leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk about it. And I'm authoring a book right now, also talking about which I'm writing about courageous thinking
Mm.
and how to access that and why it's important. And it's different, I want to say, than because there's a lot of books out there about courage.
Sure.
I've
Yeah.
hundreds of books
Yeah.
on the topic, and it's different than a Brene Brown who talks about vulnerability,
Mm.
having courage to be vulnerable, which is so also very important. And I love her work. But this is more about courageous thinking, not only as leaders, right? And in leadership, courageous thinking is having the courage to create spaces where you're allowing, right?
Mm.
You're allowing other people to have a voice, to say the thing they want to say, to ask questions. And from the leadership perspective, but then from the, employee perspective, having that, using your courage rep. And it's just a conscious decision that you make, that you ask the question despite the fear of think maybe the result of it, because you have to put yourself in a frame of mind that the positive impact of you speaking outweighs whatever fear you have of not speaking.
Yeah, I think that's a really critical point, and I want to come back to that, because I know that motivates you when it comes to courage, is sort of the output of it. I want to come back to your story a little bit, because it is kind of a powerful story, and I think your point about not needing to go through what you've maybe gone through in your life is wonderful, but I think there is maybe at least some inspiration to be drawn from your own your own story. I mean, you and your family came here as refugees from the Iran-Iraq war, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when that happened, and how did that experience evolve for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I was 2 years old when my parents fled the Iran-Iraq war after the Iranian Revolution. So I'm Iranian, and my mom was about 20 years old when we left, and we fled via train and got off on the wrong train stop in Eastern Europe. My father was trying to find us, and we were thrown in a refugee camp. And then after several months, we ended up getting asylum to Canada, and I grew up in Canada. But I think when you start your early life with an experience like that, even though I was only 2 years old, there's a part of it that stays within your muscle memory, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that shapes you as you grow up. And I think about why my parents fled Iran. And for those who don't know, in Iran, you do, under the Islamic regime in 1979, under the Islamic regime in Iran, a lot of women can't speak up. They don't have voices. And when they do speak up, or when they protest against the regime, like it just happened in early January of this year, they get executed, they get detained. And after the revolution happened, my father, knowing that he was having a daughter, it was really important for him to be able to provide a life for me where I wasn't silenced, where I was able to speak up. And so for me, that has stayed with me since I was a little girl. And that's what gives me courage, to be able to say what I want to say. And when I think about the women in Iran and how they don't have a voice, the comparison of me standing in a boardroom and telling leadership what I think seems so minimal, compared to
the perspective
what they're
there.
going, right? So for me, that's where my courage comes from. But as much as, that is a part of my history and that is a part of my story, I try to inspire and empower people to find that courage within them that may not be the same path of how I found mine.
Yeah.
I don't think that, it's all relative, right? And I don't think that you need to go through an exact traumatic experience at a young age, at 2 years old, and flee a country and, be an immigrant. Like anyone can have courageous thinking. But it's about making a conscious decision, and it's about exercising, the rep and exercising the muscle, just like anything else. And the more you do it, the less scarier it becomes. And I think I just started doing it at such a young age because of my circumstance.
You were thrown into it.
Exactly.
And you were surrounded by people who were living it, meaning, your parents were living in courage. I mean, they made a choice to, to protect you and the family, to say, we're going to go to a space where that can be a better place for you to live. And that takes a lot of courage. I mean,
it does.
That was a very tumultuous time, in Iran's history. And so what I'm seeing you doing is, many ways, you're sort of passing that on, right? You were you were gifted that in a way from your parents, and their experiences, which you then lived through some of it. And now you have this ability to share with others how to find it. And I love this idea of reps because I think we see it as such a black and white thing. I have courage or I don't have courage. And what you're saying is like, it's almost like go do some courage. Like go do a little bit of courage today. Like, and it doesn't have to be standing in front of the whole boardroom and saying your thing. It could be say something to a coworker who you generally aren't quite comfortable saying it to, or say it to a friend who sometimes maybe feels like they're not listening to you, and you just want to say, hey, I just want you to know that sometimes I don't feel like you're listening to me, and just step into that moment and then build it like a muscle.
Partner at home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One example that I like to use, because I think a lot of people can relate, is that, when someone says, well, what should we eat tonight? Because that comes up every day. What should we eat tonight? Having the courage to even stick up for what you want to eat.
Yeah.
Because you may be silencing yourself because you, in the back of your mind, be thinking that person doesn't like that food or that restaurant. Right? But
yeah.
the act of, just saying what you want is courageous thinking, right?
Yeah.
It starts with these small acts of dissent, asking, says who, when someone says something that's a limiting belief, and speaking up and asking questions and, presenting facts and thoughts and challenging people. And you don't have to do it in a dramatic way. You don't have to do it in a combative way. Just asking one additional question is one small rep.
Yeah.
Really, that's interesting. But where does that come from?
Right.
Really, that's interesting. But have you ever considered this? That's interesting. But blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it's critical thinking. It's a critical thinking skill to be able to ask questions in a courageous way.
Yeah.
But it also can be a small act. It doesn't have to be this bold.
Yeah. I love the dinner example. I think it's such a great example because we've all been there. We've all been there, both from the, the one side of it where we don't speak up, and the other side of it where we know our partner's not speaking up. It's like,
well, what do you want? Well,
what do you want? What do you want?
Well,
right. Like that whole dance. And it's like, I don't know. I don't really care. What are you in the mood for? Blah, blah, blah. And like, okay, that's sort of like a fun little bit we all play in relationships. But like, yeah, what if you just said, I want steak? Okay. Yeah, great. And then I can still say, I don't really want steak, but what if we did steak tonight, and then tomorrow night, can we do, what I'm craving tonight? Like it's, and it's funny because like, that's a very small example of how I think you can open the door to at least a slightly healthier relationship by just allowing yourself to speak. And then on the bigger examples where you get into like, asking that one more question at like work or something, I think, and this I think comes back to what you're talking about when it's the truth. We're trying to get to the truth. And how in the world are we getting to the truth if we're all just sort of shutting ourselves up all the time and just accepting like the first thought without question? And I think as a workplace and as a leader in a workplace, don't I want the truth? Don't I want the best, most sort of refined answer that's been through something to get there, versus just somebody saying, this is what I think, and everybody else is too afraid to say anything?
Yeah. And how many times, I mean, TJ, can you think about even in a creative advertising world where people share their idea or didn't? And I mean, working in entertainment and media for as long as I have, I can tell you there's been many times where we will have a pre-meeting for the pre-meeting and have a discussion about, our ideas and thoughts. And then we get into the room or on the Zoom call and people are just silent.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. And I think that you bring up something really important about trust, because right now I think we are living in a macro trust regression as a society in general. Like if we look at the latest Gallup studies and surveys on trust within the corporate world, in terms of, trust for corporation has declined, but trust for
Mm-hmm.
government has declined, and trust for the media is at an all-time low now,
Yeah.
right? I think it's at 28%. And it, it's this macro problem that we're going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a society that is also trickling down into our workplaces,
Oh yeah.
even into trickling down to our meetings.
Yeah.
And there is a huge lack of trust among people right now.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What role is work playing in your life right now? Let's talk about it. Okay, back to the show. It's really, I like the way you call it, like a trust regression. I feel that as soon as you say it, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And it's like somebody might say, well, yeah, that's like out there, the culture, social media, blah, 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 but it doesn't have to be at work. But I just don't think we can separate them.
You
They don't,
can't.
we're the same person. We're wearing all of that when we show up to work, and we're bringing in our heightened sensitivities as a result of that. So that as soon as anybody says anything that signals, I don't know if I should trust them,
Yeah, and
it's
you
gone.
bring yeah, and you bring up social media, and I think that social media has really blurred the lines as well because we end up
Mm-hmm.
so triggered so quickly and making
Yeah.
assumptions of people that we don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you follow somebody who you work with, that even results in,
Yeah.
bigger issue of mistrust because we
Yeah.
may have a working relationship that's very professional. And when we get to work, we talk about advertising and creative design and
Mm-hmm.
campaigns. And then I go and I post something that's maybe political or of my
Yeah.
opinion, something I support.
Yeah.
And that is going to impact whether you want it to or not, or
Yeah.
realize it's going to impact how you come to work the next day and view me, even though
Mm-hmm.
we had so that's also trickling into
Oh,
work.
yeah. That's a great point. I mean, I hadn't really thought of that, although I've definitely experienced it. And I try, I try to clear my biases and all that, like many of us do. But I do know I can feel that, whether I'm, on a meeting with somebody who I know posted something that I maybe disagree with, or maybe I'm on LinkedIn and I see somebody post something even there, and then I'm like, wow, I don't know. Like my initial reaction is like many of us to be like, I don't know if I like or trust them as much as I thought I did. And it's frustrating because we should all be able to be okay with all of those differences of opinion. But I think something in the combination of the algorithms plus the cultural noise is pushing us to not feel that. It's pushing us to just dig in on where we are today and what our beliefs are and reject anyone who sits outside of that. And how could
Yeah,
that possibly make us work well together?
we're creating our own echo chambers. I mean,
Yeah.
the algorithms are pushing for rage bait and
Mm-hmm.
for, wanting to the posts that create engagement are the
Mm-hmm.
posts that get pushed out and get views.
Yeah.
So creators are incentivized to create posts
Yeah.
that have hooks that are going to create engagement that is conflicting. And
Mm-hmm.
so you get stuck in this, cycle of, well, how do I get more views and outreach? Well, I need to make people angry.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that gets reposted and reshared.
Yeah. And then
And
we all work together
and
as
then you
angry
all work
people.
together. And then
Yeah.
and then you all show up the next day. And so but it also, so many of us are also living in an echo chamber because I've even seen coworkers unfollow each other because
Mm-hmm.
they don't agree with something
Yeah.
somebody says online.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel that that's necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
I follow a lot of people that I don't agree with. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the only way to be able to break out of your own groupthink is to break out of that cognitive dissonance of, and discomfort of, asking yourself those hard questions and why
Yeah.
your own
Mm-hmm.
your own perspective and allowing differing views to enter, because that's the only way we can think critically. And it goes
Yeah.
back to what I talk about with courageous thinking and
Mm-hmm.
asking questions in a boardroom, because if you're not asking questions, if you're not allowing for
Mm-hmm.
dissent and differing perspectives, whether it's in the workplace or online, you're narrowing your critical thinking skills and you're narrowing the perspective that you have to make a decision.
Yeah, I think you're also shrinking your courage muscle because if you're constantly choosing to
Definitely.
avoid the conflict, I'm going to unfollow my coworker kind of bit, then yeah, then you're not getting some of those reps. And it's not that you have to like engage and fight with your coworker, but at the very least, take the courageous step to allow the feelings to sit with you and to go, why am I so triggered by that person believing that X is the best
Right.
president versus Y? And just even like, so courage doesn't even have to be speaking. It can be, to your point, it's just thinking and allowing ourselves to sort of let that stuff live with us and roll with us. And then, what I then think of is like, it seems more likely if I do that, that I can show up the next day and work more cleanly with that person because I've allowed myself to process the emotions and the thoughts around some of that cognitive dissonance. And now I can come in clean and go, okay, we're going to talk about a new creative campaign today. And I'm not sitting here going, yeah, but that's all I can think about is you're the one who posted that thing. I've
Yeah.
processed it. Yeah.
And I do think it comes down to respect. And I know that
Yeah.
this is a lot of pro-human values
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and Daryl Davis's work, and about listening and respect. And I think that's also missing from the equation a lot of the times, is
Yeah.
because people are wanting to be right, that people are not open to respectfully listening and
Mm-hmm.
engaging in dialogue that is allowing you to think outside of your own values and ideologies. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of it as well. And
Yeah.
even on my social media, is that if somebody comments and says, they disagree with something in a respectful way, I will engage in conversation. But if someone's going to, just tear me down and make assumptions and,
Yeah.
say hateful things, then I will,
Yeah.
most likely block them, right?
Yeah.
Or,
And I think that's
you know,
fair. Yeah.
so I think you have to do it in a respectful way, because it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have
Mm-hmm.
different opinions, but let's have a dialogue. Let's try to understand each other and let's try to widen our perspectives. And at the end of that conversation, if we still want to disagree, and it's still okay.
Yeah. Well, that's such a big thing, right? It's okay to disagree. And when we disagree, we're still allowed to like and respect that person. Like, I think about, you mentioned Daryl Davis from Prohuman, and it's like, it reminds me a little bit of the example you talked about in your own history where like, you're talking about speaking up in a boardroom. How hard is that relative to some of the things that went through your own personal experience in your family? Well, it's like Daryl Davis has had like hundreds of conversations with white supremacists as a black man. He's done this, and he's not just had the conversations, he's actually swayed people, and it's really
200,
remarkable
200
what
people.
he's done. But even if he didn't, just the courage to be like, I'm going to talk to this person. And, he happened to like find this nice connection through music, right? Because he's a musician. A lot of these folks were either musicians or listening to music and
Yeah.
were really, so he found a way in. But when I think of what Daryl Davis has done and continues to do, it certainly makes me think, well, gosh, I can talk to my friend who has a different perspective on whatever the thing of the day is. Of course I can do that. Or I can talk to my coworker, or I can not talk to them, but I can get myself to a place where I'm okay with allowing them to be who they are and respecting that, even though
Right.
like there's that fire in me that says, oh, I hate what they think. I can hate what
Yeah.
they think and still like and respect who they are.
It's funny you say that, because I wrote a Substack when I joined Prohuman Foundation about a month ago. I wrote a Substack, sort of announcing that I'm part of this new advisory board and why I joined, in my conversation with Daryl and Lori.
Mm.
And I shared Daryl's story, and my title was, If a Black man can have a conversation with a KKK, you can have that hard conversation at work.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so true, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I love that you wrote that, and I think that it's just a good reminder for us sometimes. Like, it's not that we have to have as hard a conversation as Daryl has had, or others may be having, or have the, like you said, the refugee experience that you and your family had,
Sure.
but it certainly tells us what capacity the human spirit has potential for, right?
Yeah.
And with reps, with the conversation with our friend, our partner, whomever, we can probably surprise ourselves with how courageous we can be. And that's pretty cool when I think about all of the chaos and disruption in the world right now, and how much courage I think it's going to take from many of us to create the kind of world we want moving forward. Well, that gives me a lot of hope, knowing what humans are capable of.
And I think it takes a lot of conversations like this and, continuing to be voices for the type of work that it's going to take, because it is hard work. It's not
Yeah.
easy. I think that we all have capacity, because we are all human. We all have capacity for it, but some people haven't tapped into that capacity. And I think that's hard too, because even within what's going on politically right now, there is a lot of disagreements, of course, and hyperpolarization.
Yeah.
And some people will just, shut you down. Will just say, no, I'm not going to tap into that capacity to listen.
Yeah.
And when you have to also know when you enter a space like that, because if someone is completely shut down, then maybe revisit the conversation at another time when they're more open. And that's also difficult, but it takes a lot of hard work, and not everyone is going to be open to their own capacity of being willing and able to engage in a conversation that is hard and uncomfortable. And maybe they will later. And it takes a lot of, inner and self work. And I do think that at the end of the day, the only way that we can fix this world, whether it's our leadership and organizations, it has to start with ourselves.
100.
It has to start with ourselves.
Yeah.
But if each individual starts to make these conscious, active decisions to open themselves up to courageous thinking, to hard conversations, to critical thinking, to asking questions, if each of us puts the onus on ourselves to do that and to live by that, then eventually, more and more people will start to advocate for that type of thinking and living. And that's part of why I write and why I have these conversations on podcasts, is because, I'm just one voice, but hopefully enough, the more times that I have platforms, whether it's through my social media or my Substack, I have platforms that I continue to, hammer this in. Then hopefully more and more people will start to, open themselves up to be like, oh, maybe I should be more open. Maybe I should questions. Maybe I need, expand my courage muscle.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really wonderful and healthy perspective. And I think deep down, I think most of us want to follow that path. And I think it's just the question of, to your point, where are we right now? Some people are completely shut down, and their first step is going to look a lot different than somebody who's maybe been pondering these questions for a bit, has had some growth, and is maybe ready to take a bigger step. And then you're going to have some folks who are really far along, and they're going to be showing up like Daryl Davis or others, or some of the people who have shown up in places like Iran currently, who are showing up with a lot of courage. And I think all of that's okay. We are where we are, right? And, I wanted to come back to the workplace a little bit, because as you were talking earlier about it, it reminded me of something that's very common in the advertising world, but maybe not in other careers. And it is, in advertising creative departments, you have a partnership between a copywriter and an art director or designer. And I'm probably hyping this more than people think I should, but I don't care. I think it's one of the greatest work inventions of all time, that you spend time sort of locked in with another human being and learning how to build trust, learning how to work your courage muscle, learning how to express what's true for you. And like the best of those relationships are almost like marriages. I mean, it's like an old married couple where you can say all the things and you can kind of get at each other in a playful way, but you're also like in search of truth. What is the best idea that we can get to here? I think it's this. That's interesting, but this, or I'm not seeing it. Can you tell me what you're seeing there? Because I'm not seeing it. And I think, God, I want to replicate that somehow into work more because I think we're so alone in work.
Yeah.
And that contributes to the, oh my God, I don't trust anybody. That if we could find ways to partner people up more, it would actually help us build those muscles in a really productive way. Plus, it's then a model for everyone else.
Yeah, I think you went off camera.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but okay.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and it makes me think of the director's relationship with an editor, or even with the writer. I think that directors have exactly what you're talking about in terms of copywriter and the art director.
Yeah.
And I do think that model exists in pockets throughout corporate life. I do think that even within marketing, I mean, marketing and advertising are within the same umbrella.
Yeah, cousins.
But cousins, yes. But I see it even with narrative building and social media posts and social media teams and strategy. I think if you're in a creative or strategic role, I do see of that.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, how do you take that and apply it to other areas of
I think it's a under-recognized like secret weapon to get people to be partnering together more, because we're just post-COVID in particular, we're more isolated, we're more alone. The COVID did a number on trust. We were already going this way, and then COVID kind of spiked it down for a bit. So yeah, I think there's something at least worth exploring there. Speaking of things worth exploring, you talk a lot about courageous conversations, and I wonder, like, what is a conversation that you feel we're not having right now that you think we should be having?
So many. I mean, one of the things that I think that we're not having is really taking a look at the areas within work where fear is driving decisions. I think that leaders really need to do an audit
I love that.
of where fear is making decisions. And I think that fear-based decision making right now, especially in the environment that we're, we talked about the low trust, the right environment that we're in, is costing corporate America billions of dollars.
That's a really good point.
That is like one of the most important conversations. It trickles down to everything from the way we're hiring to the way we are financing projects to the way we are promoting or not promoting people. I think that we really need to relook at the systems that we felt for decades within our corporate structures. We really need to relook at the systems and the leadership structures and rethink them. I think they're outdated. And I think those are some of the conversations that we need to be having, and most people aren't.
Yeah. The fear audit thing is such a wonderful idea. I mean, I love it because it's big but simple, right? It's just like, put that filter on. Which of these decisions that we're making are we currently making from a place of fear? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the question emerges, what would it look like if we made it from a place of courage?
Exactly. And that's pretty much my book, TJ. That's really what I'm writing about.
I love that.
It's I think, like I said, I think it's costing billions of dollars and people don't even realize it. And I think that it needs to start to be addressed across the board. We need, for so many, like I said, decades, we've been handed a playbook of what running a corporation and what leadership
Mm-hmm.
structures like. And I think that we are now at a time, we're at
Yeah.
an inflection point of all of these things happening at the same time, right? The
Yeah.
technological, the economic, the,
Mm-hmm.
cultural. And it's time for us to rethink that maybe the models we've been told to participate in
Mm-hmm.
aren't working anymore, and it's okay. What do they
Yeah.
look like? How can we reinvent and rethink
Yeah.
leadership for Gen Z and Gen Alpha and
Yeah.
the world
Yeah.
that we are on the tipping point of?
Yeah. I think that's really,
It takes courage to do
it does
that.
take courage, right? That's like
Yeah.
that's a big first step. I think, for companies that are ready to do that, I would say go do it. For companies that maybe don't feel like they're ready, start working that courage muscle, because doesn't that feel like a nice goal to work towards, where our workplaces are actually not only more supportive, more encouraging, more human, more pro-human,
Right.
and they're going to make us more money. I mean, I think about your description of all the money people are losing, and I come back to like this we're holding on so tightly, and the visual that comes to my mind is like we're holding this giant bag of money and we're squeezing it so tightly that money is just pouring out the bottom. We don't
Yeah.
even realize it. We're just thinking we're hanging on for dear life, and that's the only thing.
Yeah, that's a good visual.
And all the money is going out, and I think that's what the sort of work world feels like right now. And
Yeah.
you're creating this beautiful invitation to say it doesn't have to be that way. And honestly, it really shouldn't be that way if we want a future for kids and grandkids that goes beyond what we're seeing in front of our faces right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know I've asked you a number of questions. I'd love to give you a chance if you'd like to ask a question to our audience.
I do. So I've been thinking about a lot about we talked a little bit about reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is if you stripped away your current job title,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is the one thing that you think that makes you, what is the one thing that feels incredibly easy to you, but looks like magic to everyone else?
Mm.
And the reason I'm asking this is because, again, speaking of reinvention, like as the world is changing and we're rethinking, so many of us are tied, right? Going back to our first question,
Yeah.
tied our identity to our title, right?
Mm-hmm.
VP of this, and I'm a marketing that, and I'm a brand strategist, and I'm a finance. But if you
Yeah.
stripped away your title, what
Right.
is the one thing that looks like magic that you do, right? And I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to use the word superpower because I think that's,
Gotten a
overused.
little overused. Yeah.
And the reason I ask it is because we are stepping in this age of AI, and AI
Mm-hmm.
doesn't care about your title. It doesn't
Yeah.
care about, what tasks you complete, or
Mm-hmm.
right? It's really about tapping into the skills that you
Yeah.
have. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wanting people to start to think about what is the skill, what is your magic that
Yeah.
you do that isn't a task, it's not a responsibility or a duty, and it's not a title. That is the question I pose to people is what is your magic that's a
I love
skill?
that. Yeah. I think it's super important to do that because of all the reasons you said. I mean, the economy has just shifted so much that, I'll use the examples from my world, like copywriter and art director. Like those are great titles, and there's certainly some relevance to them still. But what would be possible if we stripped those away and just, got to the crux of like what makes you special? I love the idea of magic. I had another person on the podcast. He used this phrase, magic dust. What's your magic dust? To sort of speak to
Yeah.
superpower. And I like that notion. And the idea of this takes a little bit of self-awareness, right? To recognize the thing that's kind of easy for us, because we might not even realize how special it is. So you might start by going, well, what's really easy for me? And
Yeah.
then is it easy for everyone? Right? Because I've had so many people I work with, folks as a coach, and they go, yeah, but that's not anything special. And I'm like, ask around,
Right.
see what
Yeah.
other people think. It's a really great question to even ask other people, right? Like, what's the thing I do that you feel like would be really hard to do, but I seem to just do it.
Yeah.
It's such a good conversation starter, that question. Yeah. I love that. And I think we need to do it. I think our 5 years from now, job titles will probably look a lot different, to the point where they might not be really about output, but more around the skills you bring, the
Yeah.
kind
I
of
mean,
thinker you are, the kind of,
even think about an art director or a copywriter. At the end of
yeah,
the day, you're a storyteller, right?
yeah,
And
hmm,
storytelling is a skill right now,
yeah,
is needed, because AI can help you write copy, but it doesn't understand human emotion. It doesn't
hmm,
understand narrative building and
yeah,
how narratives tap into human emotion. It can
hmm,
give you a great grammatical,
yeah,
sometimes verifiable
hmm,
accuracy in terms of content, and sometimes not. It
yeah,
does hallucinate.
yeah,
You
yeah,
need to verify it, and
yeah,
that's an important piece as well
hmm,
of the world we're in now, right?
yeah,
Is the misinformation out there. But at the end of the day, what your skill set, I believe, as an art director or as a copywriter, is that may look easy for you outside of that title, that is transferable, is your ability to build a narrative that connects the audience.
yeah. I think
Not
that's a
something
really,
everybody can do.
yeah, that's a really good point. And I think there's so many things like that. The other thought that came up for me was the ability to just connect a lot of disparate dots.
Yes.
Like whether you're a
Yeah.
strategist or maybe a writer, an art director, somewhere in that place, that you're just sitting there all day seeing cultural noise and all this other stuff, and you're going, boom, here's a thought. Like,
Yeah.
that's not easy to do for a lot of people. And then the other side, the verification and all that, to your point, I don't want to do that, but I'm glad that there are people out there who are good at it. I'm not going to be the person who's going to be very good at that. So I
Right.
think that's
Yeah.
such a wonderful opener to a way we should be thinking about ourselves. I feel like you've probably answered this throughout, but I want to wrap this up a little bit. If you could wave a magic wand and create a fully desuckified work world, what would that world look like?
A world where hiring and promotions and ideas and worth are based on skills and your potential and
Mm,
integrity, not titles and politics and proximity to power.
oof,
That is a big one for me. I
yeah.
think we're a world where we celebrate problem solvers and truth seekers, and where
Mm,
leaders are rewarded
yeah.
for saying, I don't know, let's figure this out together,
Mm, that's
instead of
really,
pretending they have the answers, instead of, you know, lying,
yeah, no, I mean, real, yes. This is,
instead of,
yeah,
sweeping things under the rug.
yeah, instead of
Oh,
bullying,
yeah,
instead of all the things that happen.
all the things. I just want a truthful,
Yeah, seeking the,
courageous world.
yeah, I mean, and I think most of us do, but then it's like, let's figure out how we can build those muscles so we can create it. Because right now, I think a lot of us are probably going, I want it, I don't know how to do it. And
Right.
so build those muscles, like you've said, and I think we can get there. Now I want to have some fun.
Okay.
If you've listened to my show, you hear cats meowing and other sound effects at the beginning of the show, and that's just part of my fun. I like to coming back to the idea of making work fun. This makes it fun for me.
Yes.
And I always invite our guests to add to the sound effects that show up in the beginning. So do you have a sound you'd like to make or share?
Yes, but can it not be like a sound? Can it be like a word that's kind of a sound?
Let's try it.
Okay. All right, let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Action.
I like that. I like
It's my,
that.
my Hollywood,
Yeah, I like
my
it. I think
Hollywood
that's cool.
contribution.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you for that. And I like that. It feels aligned with like your whole thing around courage, like take action. Let's do it. Let's get out in the world and make things
Yeah.
happen, find truth.
I was gonna say lights, camera, action, but it was too long, so I felt
Yeah, I like it.
it was more
Yeah,
aligned with.
I like it. I think it's great. I think it's right to the point, and I think that qualifies. So yes, that
Okay.
works. The last question I like to pose, obviously, is, how can people find out more about what you're doing, your Substack, any of the work you're doing? What's the best way to track you down?
Thank you so much. You can find me on Substack. My Substack is called This Is Not a Memo. And my name, Maryam Mertash, is on LinkedIn and on IG. So if you're on those platforms, you can find me there. And if you want to learn more about courageous thinking and leadership and how to desuckify work, follow me on Substack, because I do write weekly on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on Tuesdays, it's more of my reflection posts. They're my free posts. And on Thursdays, I do more frameworks and more action sites.
Oh, I like that.
Also launching this Friday, a Friday memo of my favorite books. So if you're into, reading fiction books, business books, I'm also going to start a Friday series where I do my favorite books.
That's very cool. I like that. I like the way you're breaking down your Substack. I definitely encourage people to check it out. I love what you're doing. I love how you are desuckifying work and beyond. I would add, I think it goes beyond work. Thank you for coming on, Maryam. This has been a delightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to continuing to build this relationship and get to know you with our work at Prohuman Foundation.
Likewise. That'll be awesome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Maryam for bringing courageous thinking to the show. You can follow Maryam on LinkedIn and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe to her Substack, This Is Not a Memo, where she shares stories of courage every week. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to find some calm in the chaos of work, I invite you to schedule the free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone!